Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. In this video today, it's going to talk a little bit about patch 9.2 preparations and what I've been doing on my character, I guess characters, because the two warlocks at this point, to get ready for the patch's release. Now, I might go a little in-depth on certain warlock things here and there, but this video is, for the most part, universally applicable for basically any class that you're playing heading into patch 9.2. Now, one of the things I enjoy the most about looking into PTR and future patches is trying to find things that I can do currently in 9.15 or whatever patch we're in to sort of prepare, get a head start heading into the new patch. And while there's not as much this time around right now as there usually has been in the past, partially because PTR isn't fully fleshed out yet, we still don't know about class tuning, covenant tuning, legendaries, when things are going to be available, when you can be able to craft tier pieces, a lot of stuff. There's a few things you can be doing right now. Some will take a little bit of time that you probably should be doing right now in your free time to get ready for patch 9.2. A couple things before we get into the video. Number one, week auras, profiles, add-ons, anything you see here, all for free on my Twitch. Swing by, hang out, grab them anytime, ask any questions, feel free to do so. Number two, one huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys for all the support a million times. The 9.2 Warlock spreadsheet is indeed now live for the tier 3 Felgar rank my Patreon or higher. There is indeed early access for it there. If you're interested in supporting, there should be a link somewhere up here or down in the video description below. So with that being said, let's get in, starting off number one with covenants, renown leveling, and really what you should be doing for them with our downtime in 9.15 right now. Alrighty, so number one, covenant leveling. Now, 80 renown, from what Blizzard said, will still be the max renown heading into patch 9.2. They clarified in one of the early videos they put out, like in one of their, I guess, interviews for 9.2, there's not going to be any new renown levels and no new soulbind traits or anything up along those lines. So basically what you have now is what you're going to have for the remainder of the expansion. So with that being said, getting covenants to 80 renown, being the max right now, is technically sort of a future-proofing kind of way of doing things. And the way I look at it in the end is, hey, I'm not really doing much in the first place right now in WoW. I might as well be spending some of my time to upgrade my covenants or get my renown to 80. Now, as far as things go in PTR, this class tuning still hasn't happened, so we're not really sure what covenants are going to be best for Warlock and I guess other classes in general, but sort of future-proofing and having them all at 80 renown. So let's say Heroic Week, for example, when they do Heroic class tuning, or in the middle of Hall of Fame prog later on, if they buff one covenant ability, one legendary, one soulbind, and it pushes one ahead of the other, you're not going to have to level 40 plus renown levels out of nowhere, and it's going to be a huge pain, right? So number one, like pushing all the covenants to 80 is what I would recommend right now in your free time. Not doing much else really, and honestly, for the most part, it's pretty easy to level up. What I've been doing is all of my callings basically every day, every other day with my covenants, which is a guaranteed 3-ish renown every 2 days, basically 7 renown per week. World bosses up until renown 56 or so, I believe, give 3 renown per kill. Now, I also wrote a covenant renown leveling guide for 9.1 for Wowhead. I'll have a link to that down below, and for the most part, it's still pretty similar. You can still acquire renown through LFR, through running Mythic Plus, but they've made it easier to get in 9.15 with a guaranteed renown from dailies or I guess callings up into a higher point. Now in the end, I believe the final 2 levels do require are from like Shaping Fate, and I believe Shaping Fate and one other weekly quest you get, maybe the Anima one. It's the final 2 points that are required from 78 to 80. But at this point, we still have, I would assume, probably a month or so before the PTR actually hits retail. We're in 9.2, so there's still plenty of time. And if you're pushing even at a decent rate, you can basically do 40 to 80 every single week with at least one covenant. So in addition to that, if you haven't bought any of these actual rep tokens, or I guess tokens, to boost your renown here, so you have to have, from what I understand, one character with 80 renown with any covenant to unlock this. It's account wide, increases the renown of your currently active covenant to 40. So you have to buy this for, if you're 80 renown with Night Fae, you have to buy it for Necrolord, Venthyr, and Kyrian, but it will push each individually, but it will push them all to 40. So essentially it's only 40 levels to grind instead of 80. And if it's a reset day, you can go from 40 to 60 pretty easily within a few hours time frame. Now on top of that, Blizzard has also implemented recently this increases your attunements to the Shadowlands, learning all conduits and raising them to item level 200, which is also account bound. I don't believe there's any requirements of this. You get them off from the Flight Master here in Oribos essentially, and it's pretty simple for the most part. But like, I truly feel the number one thing you can be doing in your time right now to prepare for patch 9.2 is leveling multiple covenants to max renown. Even if you don't actually end up getting them all to 80, covenants are swappable at will in 9.2. I mean, they're swappable now, right? So it's not like, okay, we're going into a raid, what covenant are you playing for the entire tier? You can play Night Fae on one boss, Necrolord on the other, Venthyr on the third, and Kyrian on the fourth. And all you have to do is come to Oribos, swap Covenants, and go from there and swap Soulbinds. It's very, very simple. Oh, and on top of that, the actual storyline does give double Renown now. And if you do the storyline on one character, it'll unlock it on all of them. But I've done Venthyr on 0, so I need to get to work on that. Leveling Renown with Covenants, I would say, hands down, in my opinion, is the #1 thing people should be doing to prep for 9.2 right now. Because in the end, what else are we even doing right now, right? Besides waiting. Now, from a Warlock perspective, Covenant-wise, once again, take this with a grain of salt because PTR tuning is not done. But people have been asking, what Covenant should I level second? Because I have Venthyr, which is good in a heavy AoE Mythic Plus setting. We've seen as Destro, and even like some merit with Affliction, I guess, in heavy AoE, even though you have Seed Spam. You have Necrolord, which is very good in single target, technically the highest simming Covenant across the board for Warlock now in single target, and you have Kyrian, which is just bad. I did Night Fae first, obviously. I would say level Necrolord second, in my opinion, and then probably Venthyr third and Kyrian fourth. I struggle to find an area where Kyrian is better than the other 3 Covenants. Venthyr could be good in Mythic Plus, depending on destructions and the damage profile. If there's any like buffs to like aura buffs or just buffs to Chaos Bolt. Venthyr could be really, really strong in that setting because you're not playing just one legendary anymore, right? You have the Impending Catastrophe legendary from Venthyr, and you have Wilfred's. And the biggest complaint that I had playing that build, the Venthyr one with the IC legendary, was that it was really fun to hit in heavy AoE, but having a 3-minute Infernal feels really, really, really bad. But that won't be an issue anymore in 9.2 because you can play the IC legendary and Wilfred's together. So I go Night Fae, followed by Necrolord, then probably Venthyr, and if you get around to Kyrian, great. If not, just, you know, if it gets buffed, we'll go from there. So the second thing, which sort of ties into, I guess, 9.15, because they did change Torghast a bit in 9.15, is Torghast, Soul Ash, Soul Cinders farming. Now, it might actually seem pretty simple and relatively straightforward, but we've seen high-end guilds farming thousands upon thousands of Soul Cinders, not Soul Ash, Soul Cinders, which is the rank 5 and 6 crafting rager, essentially running Torghast hundreds of times. Now, for the most part, for the average casual player or a player who's just coming back for 9.2, there's no real actual need to do that. For the most part, you can farm Torghast infinitely now. This website is called soulash.eu. It's great. It shows you where to acquire Soul Ash and Soul Cinders weekly. The Maw gives a bit of Soul Cinders through the Assaults, Tormentors, and Torghast. Torghast reclears give 100% Soul Cinders and Soul Ash. So essentially, you can go in and farm layer 12 Torghast for 350 cinders per clear, or layer 9, which also this is a great way to also farm Renown if you're trying to catch up. Running layer 9s, basically walking into the level, running to the end, AoEing everything down. There's a chance of getting Renown on the final boss, as well as guaranteeing you, well, 230 Soul Cinders. Now, it takes from going from baseline 0 to max level, basically making a 0 to 5 legendary, you need 5,000 Soul Ash and 1,650 Soul Cinder, which is not a whole lot. But for the most part, having a pool of Soul Cinders and Soul Ash on the side is still relevant heading into next patch, because there might be a legendary, for example, that gets buffed that, hey, this is pretty good now after Heroic Week, after Mythic Week, and having to go into Torghast in the middle of raid prog or just during more relevant things like grinding Zereth Mortis rep for 3 weeks to unlock double legendaries seems like a bit of a pain. Now, Blizzard has clarified in 9.2 there will be a different way to make legendaries, a new currency, but Torghast also goes up to like layer 16, I believe, in 9.2. And from what I've heard, is dropping a lot more cinders at level 16. But at the same time, I would assume that layer is gated behind 3 to 4-ish weeks of progression through Torghast. I doubt it's open on launch. So Torghast, if you have some free time now, maybe double down with Covenant Renown leveling, but I would certainly want to stockpile a bit of Cinders and Soul Ash. I need to do it myself, so I'm a little behind here. So you're not scrambling heading into patch 9.2 to make legendaries that might very well get buffed. And in the end, you're going to want it for your double legendary pattern anyways, right? So now, as far as Warlock legendaries are concerned, heading into patch 9.2, okay, tuning is still not done. Class tuning, I would assume, is happening in the near future with Mythic testing wrapping up, and I would assume some Covenant tuning, some Legendary tuning coming with that as well. I'm going to say now, Night Fae, all subject to change. And for what it's worth, I wouldn't even put a whole lot of merit into this. Once again, tuning. But DSS, Decaying Soul Satchel, Night Fae stuff, very good in 2+ target settings. Soul Shape is relevant regardless across the board. In single target, the actual Necrolord Shard of Annihilation legendary is simming higher. Like, I guess that Covenant with this legendary, because you can only play one Covenant and one non-Covenant, is semi higher for every single spec for me in single target. When you factor in that second target, or factor in like haste, multiplicative scaling with crit additive scaling with DSS and demonology, I would assume Nightface still a bit ahead there. Regardless, you're going to be playing your one Covenant Legendary. Now, briefly for each spec, I'll tell you what I'm eyeing, what I'm looking at, what's tested decently on PTR so far. Destra, we have Cinders, and basically we have Wilfrids. Now, with the 4-piece having a good bit of synergy with Reign of Chaos, now I'm sort of under the assumption that we're going to play Wilfrids and Reign of Chaos basically everywhere for destruction. They're pretty close, being Reign and Wilfrids, 2 Cinders and Roaring Blades, even in single target right now. With the 4-piece having that Reign of Chaos value, versus not really having any extra value with Roaring Blaze, I would assume just Wilfrids and Roaring Blaze edge out Cinders and... Sorry, Wilfrids and Reign of Chaos edge out Cinders and Roaring Blaze. We'll have to see where it goes, but 2-minute Infernal versus 3-minute Infernal Estestro just feels like a different spec in the first place. So for the most part, not a whole lot's really changing here. Yes, there's some additional value to Madness in a sense, because more bolt cast, faster bolt cast, more 4-piece procs, all that. But for the most part, I'm really just eyeing Wilfrids and Cinders at this point. Looking at Affliction, not a whole lot's really changing here either. So we do have the baseline Covenant Legendary, Malefic Wrath in single target. As long as you can maintain the actual buff. I wish the duration was longer, like 12 seconds, but that's just, you know, wishful thinking at this point. This Legendary is exceptionally strong with Shard of Annihilation as Necrolord in single target in Execute. The damage until you reach Execute is pretty mediocre, but once you reach it, it's very, very strong. In single target, Affliction, still Malefic Wrath. Outside of that, when you're playing Covenant Legendary in, like, you know, a cleave-based fight, like Pantheon, for example, Relic of Demonic Synergy, a throwback to Castle Nathria, does indeed gain a lot of value. 2 targets, chance to increase damage by 10%, DOS rolling, multiple targets, synergy gains value, right? Outside of that, there are some fights where if you're playing Affliction, I could potentially see like Decaying Soul Satchel and Wrath of Consumption being played. First boss, for example, Vigilant Guardian. A couple other fights where ads are spawning and dying semi-frequently. There might be some value in this, but for the most part, I just don't think you're beating out the raw power of Malefic Wrath on single target or Synergy for Affliction. But if you're trying to do big single target damage, you're probably just playing Demonology anyways. So Demonology Legendaries, there's honestly one that I'm still really eyeing for a rating, and it's Wilfrid Sigil. The 4-piece now interacts for Demonology with Demonic Consumption, shorter Tyrants, more value, third dog, more decon value. I don't think anything's going to beat Wilfrid's this tier. I will say Grim Inquisitors with the 2-piece in a permanent third dog has gained a lot of value. And when they fix the 4-piece, I am a little interested in playing with Forces of the Horn Nightmare, because from what I've heard, it does have a chance on the hand cast that procs off of Horn to also proc the 4-piece. So there might be a bit of like a spicy imp build there with Forces, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think Grim or Forces is going to just outpower Wilfrids. It's just too strong. Tyrant is basically your main source of damage. It's the majority of your damage profile. So making it a minute cooldown, and even sub 1 minute at this point with 9.2 haste levels, Decaying Soul Satchel, Field of Blossoms, it's just really strong versus a minute and a half, right? Plus Grimoire Felguard synergies at 2 minutes, so every other Tyrant has a Grimoire in it. There's been times on PTR where I've had my Tyrant under 1 minute and I have to wait on my Soul Rat for a few seconds to line them up. It's that fast. So we'll see where it goes. I still want to mess with Demonology a bit more. Unfortunately, the 4-piece has been bugged for the entire duration on PTR. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. So that's how I'm feeling Legendary-wise for 9.2. All could change. Take it with a grain of salt right now. But yeah, people have been asking. Hopefully that clarifies a little bit. The mission table is one thing that I want to mention. By the way, this add-on is called Venture Plan, Venture Plan. I don't know where to get it from. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. I don't think it's on WoW Up and the other add-on update sites, but it's called Venture Plan. Everyone's going to ask about it. So the big thing with this table is that when 9.1 came, they did indeed add Soul Ash missions to the table, in addition to more Augment Rune missions. Now, we don't really know what 9.2 looks like as far as the table is concerned. I got on PTR and there's not even a table here anymore. So I would assume it's just not working properly, but I would also assume there's some kind of relevancy tied to the table through either ways to acquire the new currency for legendaries, maybe a currency to make tier pieces of gear. So one of the things that I will say, if you haven't done it by now, there's a bit of a cheat you can sort of do when you're also leveling multiple covenants up. I would look at leveling your followers to a decent level. I've spent so much time on this table leveling these guys to 60, and it's unfortunate when I pick up another follower at level 1 because if you don't have an army of 60s, it will actually drag the average level of your troops here down a bit. I have so many 60s, it doesn't matter. But I would look at leveling a team of solid followers for those missions and get the actual like campaign for the mounts and things done if you have it on your main, on your alt, whatever. Now, as far as different covenants go, none of these Night Fae followers will follow me to Neferlord, to Venthyr, to Kyrian. These two, Chroman and Meatball, these are the two that will follow you across every covenant. So technically, if you have these two, it's sort of worth prioritizing them a bit more in a sense if you're trying to like really get multiple covenants rolling. But at the same time, there's a way to sort of cheat leveling a little bit. So whenever you level Renown with different covenants, I think it's like around 60 and 75, you'll get a wisps, plural, of memory, which gives one of your companions 75,000 experience, which is a lot. My level 1 companion here needs 50 experience to level. Now, to be fair, it's probably pretty far into her level 11 here, but it's a tremendous amount. My 55 follower needs 4,800 here. This one needs 6,500. It will boost a low follower to a pretty high level, and you get multiples of these. I think I have 2 in my bank, I believe. I have 5 here. I might have 1 in my bank because I leveled all 3 covenants at this point. So these are really, really important. I would not burn them until you know what covenants you might want to play or where you want to actually do your missions, this and that, here and there. And technically, if you level 1 covenant up, you can just swap back to that, run a mission, wait for it to end, and then swap back covenants. But keep in mind, if you swap a covenant in the middle of a mission, it'll reset it and send the followers back. And if it doesn't give you the reward back, you're sort of in an odd spot. So the table is one thing that people have neglected, I feel, a lot this expansion. But depending on how relevant it could potentially be in 9.2, I think it's a very good idea to start looking at leveling followers up, whether it's a huge army of them, or probably at this point, if you haven't done it much, a pair of, I'd probably say 7 to 8 for a bit of, mixing and matching in certain missions, because it takes a very, very, very long time to level them. When a mission gives 1,800 plus 600 on a 6-hour duration, and my 55 follower needs 6k experience, which is halfway through this level already. It takes a long time. So keep in mind, if you're leveling covenants up, Wisp, save them, but I would get a team going. Now, on top of that, on top of leveling them up here, one little thing, which you're looking to make gold and or prep for next tier, augment runes. These are about 200 gold on my server. They were 260 last night. They've gone up a considerable amount. There are multiple missions on the table that give augment runes. Now, in 9.2, when you reach Exalted with Zereth Mortis, the zone, there is a permanent augment rune, like every expansion. But until then, obviously, Race to World First guilds, early Hall of Fame guilds, they're going to end up buying out servers worth of augment runes, right? So whether you want them for yourself or want to make some gold, it's definitely not a bad idea to start running these augment rune missions, because in the end, it's quite literally free gold, whether you use it for yourself or your guild. And hey, it sort of helps level your followers at the same time. It's sort of a 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing. And the last thing of sorts is sort of a min-maxy kind of thing, but I know I'm in Korthia for week 8,726, and I know everybody wants to do Korthia at this point, but it doesn't really take that much effort, and in the end, it can be a small power gain heading into next tier that you can sort of gain now. And once again, what else are we doing at this point in time, right? And that is sockets on Domination shard slot pieces that we have right now. Now, in case you guys forgot, like me, sockets, so they can go on helms, necks, bracers, belts, and rings. So helm and bracers, out of all of those are, oh, and your belt, sorry. So helm, bracers, and belt, those are Dom socket slots, right? Now for casters, we have Mythic Sylvanas helm at 259. We have a 259 belt from KT, and we have 259 bracers as well from one of the 2 end bosses. I think this is Sylvanas. I don't even know at this point. But interestingly enough, they've already mentioned that Domination shards will not work next tier in the actual raid. I think they work like in the Maw still, but who cares, right? So in the raid, these Dom socket slots are essentially dead, right? Now, the 259 actual bracers, they're a higher eye level than what you can acquire right now from Mythic Plus or wherever else at a, the highest eye level it can go, which is 252. But if you look at the main stat comparison, the bracers, for example, 62 intellect. If I pull up my other bracers, there's 58 intellect at 252. Now these stats are terrible. but that's not what we're looking at, right? There's a 4 main stats being intellect difference here, which is not a whole lot, right? So if you're looking at 62 int and no socket versus 58 int in a socket with a gem in it, chances are pretty high that gem's going to sim higher than the extra 4 intellect, even with int being what, 1.7 times the value of a secondary stat for casters right now. So bracers, belt, and helm, that could very well be a thing. The belt, for example, 83 int. Pulling up a good belt here, 78. It's a 5 int difference. Now, the helm is a bit different, 111 int versus 100 and what? Let's see, 104. So you're looking at what, a 7 int difference, give or take. But still, 7 int versus 16 of a secondary stat. It's sort of a wash, but I think it might actually favor the gem a bit more than the higher eye level helm without the socket. Now, there might be a little bit more stamina on these pieces, maybe a tiny bit more survivability. But at the same time, if you're dying to an effect at 1 health, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be a bit of a wash either way, right? And on top of that, depending on what Dom slot you're wearing, itemization for casters at the end of this tier is pretty rough. Big verse, minor mastery, crit verse, and verse mastery. Hey, listen, if I can swap in a big haste mastery helm, if I can buy or get a belt with something besides crit and verse on it, I believe there's a BOB out there. I can put a socket in that with better stats on it. And the same goes for bracers next tier. I believe a haste mastery pair drops in Tazavesh. There are better options out there secondary stat wise on top of adding a socket to them, which I guess, you know, depending on if you're trying to get next tier or not, I suppose it probably wouldn't matter much because you want to do it this tier. So I guess Tazavesh wouldn't really matter, but either way, I'm comparing it to verse mastery bracers here. So verse, probably a wash. TLDR, the 3 slots here, you can probably make work with a socket. All it's going to cost you is 5,000 research, which at this point, I mean, if you don't have 15k stored up somehow, it shouldn't be that bad. Just go out there and do a rift farm for 5 minutes, go up and just do your dailies twice a week. You'll get there eventually. It's a pretty minor power gain, but similar to actual 9.1, we were farming the Maw for sockets and legendaries, which in the end didn't really work out. It's a small power gain, but it's something. If you're looking to min-max early heading in the next patch, it's definitely one that I would end up doing. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video clarified on basically everything that I've been doing for 9.1 prep-wise at this point. Once again, with PTR not being super clear on class tuning, covenant tuning, soulbind tuning, conduit tuning, what the eye level on certain things is going to be, how you make tier gear, a lot of things are sort of unclear at this point. It's sort of hard to find little things, little niche things you can be doing now in 9.15 to prep better for 9.2, but these are the ones that I found and the ones that I would definitely recommend doing while we're not really doing anything else on retail at this point. Let me know down below in the comment section if you guys have any other relevant ones that you thought of that I didn't mention here. If you have any questions, also feel free to drop them down there. I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Any weak auras or profiles or add-ons, once again, you saw here. Venture Plan, one more time, is the add-on for the mission table. But you can find all of those links and profiles in my Discord and on my Twitch, which are both down below. If you want to swing by, hop in there, hang out, grab them anytime, feel free to do so. I'm really excited for 9.2. All of raid testing has been good. A couple little things have been buggy. The final 3 bosses not being tested is really interesting, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it works out. If Blizz can pull it off, it's going to be insane from a viewer race to world first perspective. Walking into these final 3 boss rooms for the first time, whichever guild reaches it first is going to be really, really cool. So hey, I'm hopeful. I also want to give one more big shout out one more time to my patrons. Thank you again, guys, for all the support and all the recent patrons as well. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Once again, the 9.2 Warlock spreadsheet is indeed now live for the tier 3 Felguard rank, my Patreon or higher. There is indeed early access to it there. If you're interested in supporting, there should be a link somewhere up here as well as in the video description down below. Once again, while you're down there, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons. It also helps out a ton. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.